I'm Brent Goff. It's good to have you with us. U.S. President Donald Trump has defied international warnings and reversed long-standing American policy tonight by officially recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Trump says that his decision marks the beginning of a new approach to the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. He added that the U.S. remains committed to resolving the conflict, including his support for the two-state solution.
Committed to helping facilitate a peace agreement that is acceptable to both sides. I intend to do everything in my power to help forge such an agreement. Without question, Jerusalem is one of the most sensitive issues in those talks. The United States would support a two-state solution if agreed to by both sides.
Now, closely following that speech, in an emotional statement, Saeb Erekat, the Secretary General of the Palestine Liberation Organization, said that Trump's announcement undermined all peace efforts.
This step is prejudging, dictating, closing doors for negotiations, and I think President Trump tonight disqualified the United States of America to play any role in any peace process. The Palestinian leadership will call for an emergency session for the Palestine Central Council to study this speech and to review all the options available and take the proper decisions concerning many issues. At the same time, I would say that crossing these red lines tonight for President Trump, speaking about moderation, speaking about nonviolence, I think tonight he is strengthening the forces of extremists in this region as no one has done before. This is an act, a statement that's totally uncalled for, totally unacceptable. Jerusalem is occupied territories. No country on earth have recognized Israel annexation of East Jerusalem except for President Trump tonight. He is in total violation of international law, human rights, and he's turning the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis from a political one into a religious one. That's a very dangerous situation.
That was a visibly moved and emotional Saeb Erekat speaking there. Let's dissect what happened today. And to do that, I'm joined by our correspondents, Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem and Karsten van Namen in Washington. Good evening to both of you. Tanya, let me start with you. The Palestinians, they say that this is a game changer. What will happen now if they no longer see the U.S. as a legitimate broker of peace?
Yes, I think that's very important now to see what the next step that will be taken. I don't know if we have the answers yet to that. We understand that all the factions, the political factions, will meet in the coming days to discuss the next steps. And we heard Mahmoud Abbas giving a speech tonight to the Palestinian public, reassuring them in a way, and basically saying that there is no change of the Palestinian position when it comes to occupied East Jerusalem, which is understood by most of the international community being an occupied territory. It's just the US that is now isolating itself from this position. Now, the Palestinians have made it clear, as you said, that they don't see the US as an honest broker anymore, but it's not yet clear, who would step into that. I think they have to decide now what the next steps will be taken by them.
And Karsten, the U.S. president, he really labored the point that nothing is changing here except the address of the U.S. embassy. I mean, was this speech, this message, was it the one that we were expecting to hear?
Well, in a way, yes, because the White House had been advertising the contents of that speech for some time now, for the last few days, through different channels. So basically, the main points here were that, first of all, this is just about acknowledging the reality on the ground. Also, that this is what Donald Trump promised in his election campaign, so nobody should be surprised about it. Also, that basically Donald Trump is just following through on what has been the law of the land for the last 22 years since Congress in 1995 passed the Jerusalem Embassy Act, and just the implementation of this law had been postponed again and again by previous presidents, also by Donald Trump, by the way, in the summer, and then that Donald Trump is still committed to the peace process. So these were the main points that had been brought forward by the White House and which had been repeated by Donald Trump today.
I'd like for us to take a listen to what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, what he said after the Trump announcement.
The president's decision is an important step towards peace, for there is no peace that doesn't include Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. I call on all countries that seek peace to join the United States in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and to move their embassies here. I share President Trump's commitment to advancing peace between Israel and all of our neighbors, including the Palestinians.
Tanya, the Israelis, or the Israeli Prime Minister, he's not hearing the same message that the Palestinians are hearing. I mean, we're talking about 3 days of rage coming up now. Is Israel bracing for violence?
Well, I mean, the Palestinian factions have called for unarmed resistance, going out to the street, holding protests also in front of the U.S. embassies, also around the world. But of course, the Israelis are bracing for violence, particularly in Jerusalem. Probably we're looking mainly at the Friday prayers. That's usually a point of friction there, and that could well happen. But at the moment, it's very hard to predict what will happen, because my impression is also Palestinians are quite exhausted here. But of course, you can't really predict what will happen in the coming days. It really depends how much they feel, this will affect their life here, and their hopes are taken to have, to come to any Palestinian state maybe as well.
And Karsten, before we run out of time, let me ask you, we know that the Vice President of the U.S. is going to be taking a trip to the Middle East, I think next week, and we know that Trump's foreign policy team with Jared Kushner, they plan to unveil what's called the ultimate peace plan for the Middle East early next year. Do we know now what's going to happen? I mean, is the White House prepared for the reaction that they may get now when they travel to Israel or to meet with the Palestinians after today's announcement?
I'm not quite sure if they're really prepared for this, but I can't tell, really. I mean, Donald Trump has not demonstrated here so far that he is a man for long-term planning. He is definitely going for the short-term triumph, the short-term excitement, points he can score with his base, and everything else he probably thinks he can sort out later. So we will have to see how the reactions are and how much violence there is, and that will probably also determine how much success these missions to the Middle East will have.
Karsten Phenomen in Washington, Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem on an eventful day today. To both of you, thank you very much.